Here are today's top stories. Malacañang vows the speedy resolution of the 9-year-old Maguindanao massacre case. Chinese President Xi Jinping thanks President Duterte as he vows to strengthen trust and cooperation between the Philippines and China. President Duterte urges Congress to reinstate mandatory ROTC for senior high school. And the DENR orders the cleanup of rivers nationwide within 1 year.
Good day, I'm Pia Rosas Morato. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. As the Maguindanao massacre case enters its 9th year, Malacañang gives its assurance that the victims of the incident will get long-deserved justice. This as the Department of Justice says it is doing its best to hasten the resolution of the case. Here's a report.
Malacañang vows that justice will be served for the victims of the Maguindanao massacre. This as relatives of the victims in one of the most gruesome killings in the country continue to seek for the resolution of the case 9 years after the massacre took place. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo says the Department of Justice is doing its best to hasten the prosecution of former Maguindanao Mayor Andal Datu Unsay Ampatuan Jr. and other accused. Panelo says even as prosecutors act swiftly on the case, they will still follow the rule of law. He acknowledged that the justice system in the country is slow, but he stressed that the case will eventually be resolved. Earlier, President Rodrigo Duterte gave a marching order to speed up the prosecution of the suspects and to have convictions possibly within the year. On November 23, 2009, 58 people, including 32 media workers, were killed in a massacre described as the deadliest attack on journalists in history. The group was covering the filing of certificate of candidacy of Ismael Toto Mangundadato, who was then challenging Andal Unsay Ampatuan Jr. for the gubernatorial post. The Ampatuan clan has been accused of masterminding the massacre to derail the political plans of now incumbent Maguindanao Governor Ismael Mangundadato for the 2010 elections. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Miguel Hill.
The Presidential Communications Operations Office pays tribute to the victims of Maguindanao Massacre. PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar, along with Presidential Task Force on Media Security Chief Joel C. Edco, led the wreath-laying ceremony to mark the 9th anniversary of the worst election-related violence ever recorded. The PCOO chief visited the symbolic monument in Sitio Salman, Barangay Masalay in Ampatuan, Maguindanao to pay respects to the 32 journalists murdered that day. Andanar, who co-chairs the PT FOMS, commended EDCO and the task force for providing a safe media environment in the Philippines. This as the US-based Committee to Protect Journalists has listed the Philippines among the countries with improved status in media killings. EDCO meanwhile commended the PCOO chief for championing the Administrative Order No. 1 signed by President Rodrigo Duterte to form the Media Task Force. The National Press Club of the Philippines conducted today a bloodletting activity to commemorate the 9th year anniversary of the gruesome Maguindanao massacre. The humanitarian activity held at the Bulwagang Plaridel in Intramuros, Manila is also in support of the blood donation campaign of the Philippine Red Cross. NPC members also offered a Holy Mass in front of the massacre memorial commissioned in memory of the victims. Meanwhile, NPC President Rolando Gonzalo backed efforts of the administration's Presidential Task Force on Media Security in serving justice to the victims' kin. Gonzalo lauded the efforts of Task Force Chief and former NPC President Undersecretary Joel Edco in forming a special subgroup that focuses on the progress of the ongoing trial. President Rodrigo Duterte urges Congress to pass a bill reinstating the mandatory ROTC or Reserved Officers Training Corps for senior high school students. The President says mandatory ROTC for grades 11 and 12 can instill patriotism and love for country among our youth. Duterte said he was also considering issuing an executive order to reinstate mandatory military training. The chief executive clarified that his intention to reinstate mandatory ROTC was not to punish the youth, but to make them responsible and patriotic citizens of the country. The mandatory ROTC program from college students started in 1912, but it was made optional and voluntary in 2002. This after some cadets died from hazing, including University of Santo Tomas student Mark Wilson Chua, who exposed corruption in the organization. Lawmakers call for automatic civil service eligibility for contractual government employees. And the Department of Education condemns a recent shooting in Bulacan. More on these stories and other news around the metro from Miguel Hill.
Kabayan Party List Representatives Ron Salo and Paul Hernandez filed a measure granting civil service eligibility to government employees. The measure seeks to grant civil service eligibility to those who have rendered at least 3 consecutive years or 5 non-consecutive years of government service. The eligibility aims at the regularization of contractuals, casuals, and job order employees in government. Meanwhile, President Rodrigo Duterte announced the termination of Falcone Millar, Secretary General of the Housing and Urban Development Coordinating Council. Millar was ordered sacked due to allegations of corruption. For its part, Malacañang reiterates that there are no sacred cows in the administration. In a separate report, Millar says he resigned from his post amid what he called a demolition job in protecting the government's interests. In other news, the Department of Education has condemned the shooting incident that killed an elementary teacher and wounded a pupil in Bulacan. DepEd assured the public that it is consistently working with law enforcement agencies and strengthening necessary measures to keep schools safe for its personnel and learners. Reports said Ruperto Datuin, a member of the Philippine Army, shot to death his live-in partner Melody Esber, a teacher at Tambobong Elementary School. A 9-year-old pupil was wounded during the incident. Esber students are now undergoing psychological debriefing. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Miguel Hill.
Still to come, Chinese President Xi Jinping thanks President Duterte as he vows to strengthen trust and cooperation between the Philippines and China. The NDRRMC sends aid to G-Papa at Eastern Samar after being isolated by floods and landslides. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
This is Secretary Martin Andanar, and you're watching.
It took more than 13 years bago makabisita ang isa namang Pangulo ng China sa ating bansa sa katauhan ni President Xi Jinping. Kanya very historic itong pagbisita niya ngayon sa atin.
I am honored to welcome His Excellency President Xi Jinping of the People's Republic of China. Today is a historic milestone in the bilateral relations of the Republic of the Philippines and the People's Republic of China. It marks the first state visit of a Chinese president in 13 years.
Your Excellency President Duterte, friends of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my distinct pleasure to visit the Philippines at the invitation of President Duterte. I have been looking forward to this visit for a long time, as I'm sure have people in both of our countries.
Napakadaming kasunduan ang napirmahan, tapos na rin ang joint statement. Kanya ngayon ay panahon na para sa state banquet na inianda ni Pangulong Duterte para kay President Xi.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has penned an appreciation letter thanking President Rodrigo Duterte for for the friendship and warm hospitality during his historic state visit to the Philippines. In the letter released by the Chinese Embassy in Manila, Xi cited the talks he had with the chief executive, former President and House Speaker Gloria Arroyo, and Senate President Tito Soto. The Chinese leader said he was touched by Duterte's sincerity, the friendly sentiment of Filipinos towards the Chinese, as well as the president's insight into relations between their countries. Xi vows to work with President Duterte to strengthen trust and cooperation and expressed hope that their friendship will grow ever stronger. Xi's visit to the Philippines is the first of its kind for a Chinese state leader during the past decade. The Department of Energy is welcoming companies who want to explore the country for untapped energy sources. More on this from Miguel Hill.
The Department of Energy will be accepting the applications of parties interested in exploring for untapped energy resources in the country. The DOE formally launched the Philippine Conventional Energy Contracting Program in Taguig City on Thursday. Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi said the PCECP was designed with the primary role of encouraging stakeholders to invest, explore, develop, and produce Philippine indigenous energy resources. Interested investors can select from 14 onshore and offshore exploration areas predetermined by the DOE. They may also nominate areas within the Philippines Exclusive Economic Zone for exploration at their own expense. However, the application to explore a nominated area shall have DOE's approval. DOE Assistant Secretary Leonido Pulido III mentioned that the department may name the winning applications within the next 200 days. Pulido said the contract duration is 7 years and extendable to another 3 years for the exploration phase. The production phase has a 25-year contract that can be extended to another 15 years, but no service contract can go beyond the stipulated 50-year period. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Miguel Hill.
A Malaysian co-working space firm is poised to invest between $10 million to $15 million in the Philippines. Kuala Lumpur-based Common Ground plans to open 10 co-working space hubs in Metro Manila. Common Ground launched its first co-working facility in the country in Bonifacio Global City in Taguig. The pioneer branch in the Philippines can accommodate 350 people. Common Ground will open its new hubs in the central business districts of Ortigas and Makati. CEO Junteo says a company targets to set up bigger co-working spaces within Metro Manila in the coming years. Teo says the demand for shared offices and flexible working spaces is rapidly growing, particularly in Southeast Asia. Help is on the way to Jipapad, Eastern Samar, even as landslides and flooding caused by Tropical Depression Samuel cut off access to the town. 2 major landslides and widespread flooding block roads since Wednesday. Electricity and mobile phone signals are also cut off. Board member Joji Montallana says residents have been begging for food after 7-meter floodwaters soaked food supplies, including pre-positioned relief goods from the government. The flooding had displaced over 2,500 residents who are now seeking shelter in church buildings, town hall, and concrete private houses. NDRRMC spokesperson Edgar Posada says about 1,000 food packs are on their way to Jipapad courtesy of the Philippine Army. Meanwhile, the NDRRMC has also sent food packs to the towns of Oras, which was also isolated by the floods. Farmers in Davao get help in selling their produce, and local officials set consultations on keeping Negros Occidental coal-free. More on these stories from the provinces from Maricor Zapata.
Aspire intends to help a wide range of farmer clientele learn an entrepreneurial mindset to increase their farm incomes. The program is a partnership between the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Trade and Industry, and Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The 3-day Aspire activity includes trade fair and lecture, sessions on market matching, and network building. Meanwhile, the Department of Tourism opened the Tourism Expo, showcasing the best of Calabarzon at the Fora Mall in Tagaytay City, in Cavite. The Calabarzon Tourism Expo aims to highlight the best tourism destinations, culinary and cultural services in the provinces of Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Rizal, and Quezon. Besides the premier tourism showcase, the expo will also highlight Calabarzon's products, cultural presentations, cuisines, and services. In Negros Occidental, the Sangguniang Panlalawigan will hold consultations with various agencies and resource groups on the proposed coal-free ordinance for Negros Occidental. Board member Manuel Frederico, chairman of the Committee on Energy, says they need to understand the province's power outlook before looking at its economic, social, and environmental impacts. The proposed ordinance seeks to declare Negros Occidental a coal-free, clean energy, and environment-friendly province. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Maricord Zapata.
Up next, the DENR orders the cleanup of rivers nationwide within 1 year, and a resolution seeking to join the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region steers controversy in Zamboanga. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Businesses slowly return in Marawi City 1 year after a devastating siege. Sari-Sari store owner Noraisa tries to rebuild her shop, which mainly caters to students in the Maguindanao State University.
Sa palagay ko naman, okay lang. Kaso lang, ang problema talaga sa mga tao dito, puhunan. Kasi nawala kasi yung mga puhunan nila eh. Sa ngayon, siguro back to normal na kasi yung mga bahay na mga kapitbahay ko, halos nandyan na sila lahat.
Noraisa Sari-Sari store, alongside some blending shops, gasoline stations, and groceries, start to reshape the main streets of Marawi City. Security remains tight as the police reports a drop in crime rate since martial law implementation.
Sa palagay ko, ginagawa nila ang lahat. Sa ngayon, wala pa naman kami naririnig na anomalya dyan. Wala. Okay lang naman.
Signs of life slowly come back in Marawi. No more howling of fighter jets. No more airstrikes pummeling to the ground. Only hope as the journey to recovery continues. Government agencies, NGOs, and private corporations join hands to sow seeds of hope in the battered city.
Ay nagpapasalamat kami sa ating Pangulo dahil sa hindi kami pinabayaan at saka sa LGU. Sa maganda-ganda na rin ang effort ng gobyerno.
It's still a long road to full recovery, but with the groundbreaking ceremony marking the start of reconstruction in the city's most affected areas, Maranaos get a glimpse of hope that Marawi will rise again. Rom Dul for Philippine News Agency.
The Department of Environment and Natural Resources orders all its regional offices to have all rivers under their jurisdiction cleaned up within 1 year. Environment Secretary Royce Matos says it is the DENR's responsibility to improve the conditions of the rivers in the country. He said he will be checking on all the rivers in the country 6 months from now, and the region with the cleanest river will be duly rewarded and recognized. Regional directors who fail to comply with the order will undergo an evaluation process of their performance and may face sanction or be replaced. Simato gave the order at the opening of the 4th International River Summit on Thursday, November 22 in Cebu. The International River Summit is a biennial multi-partner initiative organized to intensify promotion of clean river advocacy and governance. For our foreign news, an editor of the Washington Post is urging U.S. congressmen to look into the ties of President Donald Trump and his advisor Jared Kushner with Saudi Arabia. The call comes a few days after Trump reiterated his support for Riyadh. This even as he suggested that the Saudi Crown Prince knew about the murder of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Global Opinions editor Karen Atiyah urged lawmakers to respond to the U.S. president's support for Saudi Arabia despite the latter condoning the death of Khashoggi. She also accused Trump and Kushner of protecting financial interests with Saudi Arabia. Khashoggi was killed on October 2 while visiting the Saudi consulate in Ankara, Turkey, supposedly under the orders of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. In sports, the Azkals banked on an unlikely hero to save their semi-final bid in the ASEAN Football Federation Championship. Late substitute Joven Bedic scored the equalizer goal to forge a 1-1 draw with defending champion Thailand. At the Panad Stadium in Bacolod, Bedic converted the needed 80th minute goal to help the Azkals stay unbeaten and at the top 2 in Group B. Both teams are now at 7 points on 2 wins and 1 draw, which with Thailand remaining as a leader on goal difference. The Azkals can secure a Final Four berth if they win against Indonesia or if Singapore loses to Thailand. The Azkals can still qualify with a draw so long as Singapore fails to beat Thailand too. The autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao will soon be known as the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. Some Muslims in Zamboanga claim to hope to be part of this great change, but the move is stirring controversy. Maricor Zapata has this report.
In 3 previous plebiscites, several barangays in Zamboanga City overwhelmingly rejected their inclusion in the Muslim autonomous government. Mayor Ben Climaco has also reiterated their stand that Zamboanga will never be part of the Bangsamoro. But just recently, 2 predominantly Muslim communities in Zamboanga City faced the Sangguniang Panlunsod over their petitions for their inclusion in the soon-to-be Bangsamoro Autonomous Region or BAR. Some officials of Barangays Busay and Landangua in Sacol Island supposedly asked the Commission on Elections to include them in the January 2019 plebiscite to ratify the Bangsamoro Organic Law. But officials of Busay are saying the resolution is fake. On the other hand, the councilors of Landangua admitted they signed what they thought to be a petition for the construction of a water system and solar panels. Officials of a 3rd barangay, Tumalutab, have also claimed a similar resolution under their names was bogus. But then Councilor Jihan Eding believes the resolutions will not prosper in the COMELEC because of their deficiencies and lack of supporting documents. Zamboanga City Congressman Celso Lobregat warned that if COMELEC acts favorably on these resolutions, then Zamboanga City will be included in the January plebiscite. The controversial resolutions seem to indicate that some residents of the city aspire to become constituents of BAR, but whether their voices would be heard or not remains to be seen. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Maricor Zapata.
Let's now check out the weather forecast for Metro Manila and the rest of the country. Let's take another look at today's top stories.
Malacañang vows the speedy resolution of the 9-year-old Maguindanao massacre case. Chinese President Xi Jinping thanks President Duterte as he vows to strengthen trust and cooperation between the Philippines and China. President Duterte urges Congress to reinstate mandatory ROTC for senior high school. And the DENR orders the cleanup of rivers nationwide within 1 year.
Thank you for watching another edition of the PNA Newsroom. To check out these and other stories, visit the PNA website or follow the Philippine News Agency on Facebook and Twitter. For more stories about the government and how it serves the Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. It's 33 days to go before Christmas, and that's your daily dose of the latest news and information that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. I'm Pia Rosas Moroto. Good day.